Welcome back, everyone. You sent over some really fascinating stuff this week, all about bringing extinct animals back.
Yeah, it definitely got me thinking. And that FinShots article you shared, the one from April 14th, 2025,
Yeah.
it really dove into something specific.
Right, the economics of it all.
Exactly. The money side of this huge scientific push, especially looking at colossal biosciences and their work with the dire wolf and others.
Absolutely. So, okay, for this deep dive, that's our mission, really. Let's unpack the financial side, the motivations behind trying to bring these animals back.
Yeah, trying to figure out if it's a sensible use of resources, money, effort, everything.
Hmm. Have you ever stopped to think about the sort of economic pros and cons of reaching, like way back into the past, to revive creatures that vanished ages ago?
It's a massive question. And the FinShots piece, it gives us a good starting point. They talk about colossal biosciences in their recent work on, what do they call it, the almost revival of the dire wolf.
Okay, almost revival. Let's dig into that. It's not quite like, poof, a dire wolf appears in the lab, is it?
No, not exactly. The article is clear. It's not a straight-up resurrection. What Colossal did was use CRISPR technology,
The gene editing tool.
right, to tweak the genes of modern gray wolves. They used ancient DNA from dire wolf fossils to kind of build a genetic blueprint,
Okay.
and then they implanted those embryos into surrogate dogs.
So these pups they have now, Remus, Romulus, and Khaleesi, great names, by the way.
Definitely memorable.
They're not exact copies then. The article said they share about, what, 99.5% of the original dire wolf genes?
That's the figure. But, and this is important, we need to remember how long ago these species split.
Right, the evolutionary timeline.
Yeah, the article mentions gray wolves and dire wolves diverged maybe 2.5 to 6 million years ago. That's a long time.
Wow, so they were like very distant cousins.
Pretty much. Even with 99.5% genetic similarity, millions of years of separate evolution means, big differences. Biology, behavior, how they fit into an ecosystem. It's not guaranteed to be a functional match for today's world.
Got it. So, okay, we have these close-ish relatives of dire wolves, but the big question is, why? What's the main pitch here? The article mentioned Colossal's big goal is, well, saving the planet.
Yeah, that's the core argument they make. De-extinction as a tool against biodiversity loss. And they're right about the economic hit from that loss.
How big are we talking?
Well, the article cites that huge number, like $44 trillion of the global economy. It depends on nature.
44 trillion.
Yeah. And the loss from species extinction, over $5 trillion
Hmm.
every year.
That's staggering.
And it's not just abstract money, right? It's real things like lower crop yields because pollinators are gone, or less clean water, more damage from disasters because natural defenses like wetlands aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
So colossal positions, de-extinction is a fix, but we need to ask if it really tackles those root causes effectively.
That really frames the scale of the problem. They even quoted Dr. Jill Atkins and Barry Atkins warning about financial market collapse if we don't act on extinction. Pretty dire stuff.
It really is. And Colossal suggests, studying these revived animals could teach us about survival, maybe help endangered species adapt to climate change.
Like the woolly mammoth example they gave.
Exactly. The idea that mammoths could help keep Arctic permafrost frozen by, like trampling snow and encouraging grasslands.
That's a fascinating concept, using ancient animals for modern climate problems. And they're not stopping there, are they? The article mentioned the Tasmanian tiger.
And the dodo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely paints a picture of a company thinking big about fixing ecosystems.
And clearly that big vision, that sort of dream of bringing back the past, it's attracted a lot of money. Colossal's valued at, what, $10.2 billion?
Yep. A huge valuation.
Yeah.
Venture capitalists are definitely interested. They see the potential, I guess.
But, and this is where the article pivots, right? Does all that money, that excitement, actually add up to something good for the planet overall? It starts raising some real concerns.
Precisely. Like, look at the dire wolf project right now. These pups, they're not going back into the wild.
No.
No. They'll be in a preserve, basically.
Hmm.
Need constant care. No breeding planned yet. So you have to ask, what's the immediate conservation impact?
Fair point. And then the funding issue looms large. If they do get populations of mammoths or whatever going, who pays to look after them long term?
Especially when, as the article points out, we're already way behind on funding existing conservation. There's like an 83% shortfall in what's needed now. Billions missing.
That's a huge gap already.
It's a critical point. And that nature ecology and evolution study they mentioned, it really put numbers on the potential ongoing costs.
What did it find?
Well, looking at data from Australia and New Zealand, they estimated keeping a woolly mammoth could cost as much as caring for an endangered Asian elephant.
Wow, okay. And that's just the upkeep, right? Not the cost of actually bringing it back in the first place.
Exactly. That initial revival cost isn't even factored into that estimate.
So potentially very expensive long term.
Very. And the study looked at two ways this could be funded: governments or private money.
Yeah.
The worrying part was the government funding scenario.
Yeah.
If money gets shifted from current conservation budgets to pay for de-extinction,
Yeah.
it could actually reduce overall biodiversity. Their estimate was maybe 2 existing species could go extinct for every 1 species brought back.
Oof. That's really counterintuitive. You bring one back, you lose two others.
It really forces you to think about priorities, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Billions for the past, while the present biodiversity, which supports us, is underfunded.
Yeah. It throws the whole saving the planet argument into question, or at least complicates it.
Mhm.
And the article also mentioned how conservation money already goes mostly to, like, the cute and fuzzy animals,
Yeah,
right?
charismatic ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Birds and mammals get something like 85% of the funding. Amphibians, maybe 3%.
So de-extinction, focusing on mammoths and dire wolves, might just make that imbalance even worse.
It's a definite risk. Are we putting resources where they'll do the most good for the most species? Plus, there are the ecological unknowns.
Like what?
Well, we just don't know for sure how these revived species will fit in. Will they thrive? Could they actually disrupt ecosystems that are already fragile?
Mm-hmm. That scientific report's study about mammoth capacity in the Arctic touches on that, doesn't it?
It does, even if the Arctic could support, say, 48,000 to 72,000 mammoths.
Which sounds like a lot.
There's still the risk they'd compete with existing animals like caribou and muskoxen for food and space. More pressure on species already struggling.
Okay, so it's complex ecologically, but what about colossal itself? Is it purely about conservation, or is there a business angle here too?
Well, the article suggests it's definitely both. Yes, conservation is the pitch, but it's also a business. They're looking at ways to make money.
Like what? Selling things.
Kind of. Things like biodiversity credits, a bit like carbon credits, maybe, where they could potentially earn revenue for conservation actions,
Interesting.
and also offering their conservation tech to governments, maybe free at first, but perhaps paid down the line.
So it makes you wonder, would just focusing on existing endangered species offer the same kind of financial return for colossal?
The article kind of hints that, well, probably not. The de-extinction angle is maybe more appealing to investors,
Yeah.
more novel.
Yeah, it has that sci-fi allure,
Recyc.
which leads perfectly to that Jurassic Park reference they made.
Right, the ultimate cautionary tale about messing with nature and money like this.
So wrapping this up, there's this real pull, isn't there? The idea of bringing back lost creatures is just,
Yeah.
wow, it captures the imagination.
Totally captivating. But digging into the economics like this Finchot's article helps us do, it shows it's really complicated.
Yeah. Big questions about cost, about ecological impact, and crucially, about whether it might actually harm the conservation work we need to be doing right now.
Exactly. Could it divert focus and funds away from species on the brink today?
Which leaves us with a pretty big thought to chew on. Given the huge resources needed and the risks to the biodiversity we still have, is trying to bring back the past the best way to save the future of wildlife? Or should we be pouring everything we have into protecting what's left?
It's definitely something to think about long after this conversation ends.